Breaking bombshell exposed. New documents just dropped showing that while the Fulton County DA Fani Willis was aggressively building her RICO conspiracy case against President Trump and his 18 allies, the Biden Justice Department secretly wired $2 million directly to her office. This gift grant came straight from the DOJ while she was weaponizing the law against Trump. Talk about conflict of interest and federal funding for a political hit job. Now, no news outlet is reporting on this. This is breaking news by way of America, Real America Voice.
Yesterday, we told you that new documents we got showed that Fani Willis was working secretly behind the scenes with the Biden Justice Department, the Biden White House, and the J6 Democrats to create a double jeopardy, double drain on Donald Trump's supporters by creating a similar indictment to Jack Smith, but in Georgia, to move resources and lawyers and attention span and divide it. We're supposed to have a justice system that avoids double jeopardy, but in this case, you can see the plot being created by these lawyers and by the collaboration. Today, we raise a question, or we provide some evidence to a question that Jim Jordan raised about a year ago, the House Judiciary Committee chairman. He believed that Fani Willis's prosecution of Trump was being underwritten by the Justice Department because he saw a stream of funding. What we see, what we've provided to the public, is an unusual situation. In the middle of Fani Willis building her case against Donald Trump and 18 of his allies to charge them with conspiracy and racketeering in Georgia to double up on what Jack Smith charged in Washington, the Justice Department comes to Fani Willis and says, hey, we just want you to apply for this grant, and we're going to take this grant, which is normally competitive. We're going to make it non-competitive. Basically, you're the only one that's going to get the money. Just fill out the paperwork and take your cash, about $2 million. It's that classic Washington grant, go help kids, not really much specificity. But they move it from competitive to sole source, meaning it's wired just for her. It looks like the old Boss Hogg way of doing business, or Tammany Hall way of doing business. And I think for Jim Jordan or Barry Loudermilk, who was on our show last night investigating January 6th from the Judiciary Committee, this is a pretty serious issue for them to investigate. This looks like a gift grant to Fani Willis while she's doing the bidding of Joe Biden to pursue and tie down Donald Trump and his friends in a criminal prosecution in Atlanta. It looks just like Tammany Hall, Chicago-style politics, and there's now a complete body of documents for Congress to look at this. It's a pretty clear case of what's going on.
And it's funny that not even the local news in Atlanta, they're talking about everything with Fulton County and the election raid, but they're not mentioning this. So this bitch is going to jail. Go ahead.
But I have said that for the last year and a half. I've been preaching about it. What I said was what she was doing with Wade was an opportunity for funds that she had the ability to access being awarded to Wade for supposedly services rendered, and they'd both split it. These several $1 million are coming in. What else did I also say? With Wade singing like a bird, with what's going on in the investigation, with the connection that they have with what was going on with meetings in the White House, you said to the trial proceedings. I said, eventually you're going to get some grand juries to indict folk for conspiracy. So here we go. See, what they did isn't technically illegal, but they had a meeting with a target, and that is illegal. So in America, you can feloniously conspire to do a legal act with other people in a legal fashion, but the fact that you conspire to do it becomes felonious. So that's what I meant when I was saying this. This is going to come out, I said, and it is coming out.
But
that's why you have all these cash transactions and why she's got a problem. This is what I meant when I said she's likely to wind up in a jail cell, a federal jail cell.
Do you pay taxes on federal grant?
If you put it in your pocket. I had cases where IRS pursued somebody because they didn't pay taxes on their bank robbery proceeds.
And
They
also,
didn't have strong case on bank robbery to prove it, but they could prove that the person got the money, so IRS charged them with tax evasion. That's what they've done here in Memphis. If you look at the componentry of these task forces going in, they're not just the National Guard. They usually have a heavy FBI and IRS componentry. Like, for example, was Al Capone a murderer?
yeah,
A gang lord?
they couldn't prove it.
How do you know that?
They couldn't prove
they
it.
never charged
They never
him
charged
with
him
it.
with that.
Well, what did they put him in prison for? Tax evasion.
Yeah.
That's how you get it. That's why IRS is a big component of these task forces that are going in with the National Guard and ICE, because they're gathering the information on all of these crooked politicians who've got money under the table, either directly or indirectly, for turning a blind eye to this misappropriation of funds, like you hear with the child care centers in Minnesota.
So here's the thing.
In addition to the hundreds of millions going to our foreign enemies.
So here's the thing, right? Because we're talking about $2 million grant. It wasn't a competitive grant. It was a personal grant that they automatically approved for her in her name. So can the Trump administration, the Trump's DOJ, request an audit to, because it's a paper trail.
So I just said yes.
They can.
I just said yes, but
they can request an audit to see what did you do with this money?
I think they probably already have the trail. They just have to firm it up. I keep telling people, quit looking to have an instant prosecution like you're looking at Law and Order season 5 on TV. It doesn't work that way. People have to think about it, interview folk, redact stuff, read for hours at a time through thousands or millions of pages of documents. And most of the folk that are talking this smack are too damn lazy to read a magazine, let alone several million pages of intense, detailed documents.
Now, didn't she lie under oath about not receiving any money from Biden or meeting
Yes,
with him?
she did. Yes, she did. And that's why you heard about the cash transactions, like the $480-some tab out in Napa, California, wine country, where the waiter talks about she paid him in cash. That's what was going on. Where did that money go? What happened with the $10 million we've been keeping track of? The $2 million for catching up on sex crimes prosecutions, the $500,000 for juvenile prosecutions, the $7.5 million to catch up on general felony prosecutions. It disappeared. And she's talking about that dumping on me because I'm a sister girl. And all that's going on is the legislative body that appropriated the money wants to know what happened to it and what it did. What you do with it?
She said, I ain't getting no money.
Well, she did. She signed off on it, and now we find that.
Well, no, that's that money for the. Yeah, that was the money for her office.
No, that's not what No, you're missing the point. That's what it was supposed to be for, and that in and of itself is part of a conspiracy. But what she may have done with it is put it in her own pocket, which compounds the felony. And it might have been used to put in a fund where she had extra money to pay Wade, who probably could have submitted a bill for $8-9 million for doing the representation, and she would have signed off on paying it to him. And it would have come out of that fund.
Isn't it weird for you to get a $2 million grant in your personal name?
Highly unusual.
And it's like, okay, because you couldn't. It didn't go to her. Look. It didn't go to a 501c
It didn't go to
organization.
her like. It didn't. You see, you have to understand. It didn't go to her like, here, just do with it what you want. It was for the purpose, unstated or perhaps mildly stated, to prosecute this horrible president, as they saw it. But what happened is when they sent it to her, she now had a fund she was putting together that she could pay Wade out of. And the way the bill would have come back is payment for services rendered to prosecute this awful president that I got the funds for. But you see, he would have paid her in cash under the table out of those funds.
Wait a minute. And she paid Wade, wasn't it $800,000? Close to $1 million.
Almost, so far that we know this documented.
And it could have came out of the two.
She probably could have paid him up to maybe $8 million by the time this was all through, had she not gotten on the stand and run her big mouth off and forgotten all about the Fifth Amendment.
Right. That's why it's a lot of times it's important for you to just plead the Fifth and shut up. Good lawyers tell their clients to shut up. She thought that she could go in. She thought that, well, I'm a DA and I'm going to do what I want to do.
I know, but they tell me what I want to do. And, you know, I'm a sister. You believe your own rhetoric. I'm a sister girl. They can't prosecute me, burden me because I'm sister girl. You know, they just picking on me.
Yeah, they're picking on her because I'm black. I'm a black woman in a powerful position, yada, yada, yada. But you took
they're stealing.
Right.
Allegedly
you took money and you paid your boyfriend, you know, had him work on a case, paying him, taking him on vacations.
And you had $2 million that you could have put earmarked specifically to pay independent prosecutorial staff. She had the authority most likely to do that. And you can bet it would have gone out to him in addition to what she was going to bill the state without anybody being able to gain. So, see, there was nobody had to approve her expenditures.
Right.
She signed off on it. He was getting it and he was giving to her, allegedly. That's how it works.
So what happens next with this new bombshell information with the $2 million grant?
It's not bombshell. It's just they have known about it most likely, but it took them a while for everybody to complete their literal homework assignment. Remember in college when you had to write a paper?
So what is the next steps? What's going to happen now?
Ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury, we have a presentation for you for your consideration. The government has drafted a proposed true bill of indictment on these particular counts, on various counts, that we would like you to hear the evidence in support of. Remember, you're not here to find the guilt or innocence of the accused. You're merely here to determine whether or not probable cause is likely. What is probable cause? That is, when you hear it, you are more inclined to at least believe that a crime is likely to have been committed. It does not convict the accused. It simply makes an accusation, and they have a right to a public and speedy trial before a jury, a right to subpoena the witnesses and evidence that may support their version of facts, and they are presumed innocent until they're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. But ladies and gentlemen, as grand jurors, it's your task to review the evidence and determine whether it is likely that it was a crime was committed, and you demand through your true bill that somebody stand trial and the state be given, or the government be given the opportunity to prove that a crime was committed against the people of the United States or of Georgia beyond a reasonable doubt. See, that's the speech the prosecutor would give the grand jury, and that's going to happen.
So here's another question. So, you know, we have this coming out, $2 million grant from the Biden administration written out to Fani Willis. Can we most likely expect another bombshell, quote unquote bombshell, breaking news that the Biden administration gave Letitia James or Alvin Bragg's, you know, grant money in their name?
All of the above. Mm-hmm. But see, they're not bombshells. That's just bombastic bullshit from the media. What has happened is these things are suggested by a brief reading of the documents or an investigation and thought given to the circumstances, and then you go out and, you know, you start looking to see if there's evidence to support that. It's there, you see it, but you have to check it out to see if it's reliable, so you just don't do what your targets are doing, which is they do all this hype over stuff they can't prove. or they can establish, but it's against the law, like they did with Cosby, or like what's going to be found with Stormy Daniels.
Right.
You basically convicted somebody for being the victim of a blackmail attempt.